Nordic.
Questions remain about the explosion and fire at a Deer Park, Texas pipeline last week, sparked by a car accident.
It's thought that Jonathan McAvoy left home and headed for Walmart on September 16th, but never returned. His ex-wife says the 51-year-old had recently been suffering seizures, that he may have blacked out, driven through a fence, and hit a valve to a 20-inch natural gas line, sparking the explosion. Investigators say they may never know for sure.
ABC's Jim Ryan reporting. Stocks closed lower today. California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a law that bans private nonprofit colleges in California from giving preference to applicants related to alumni or donors. It takes effect next September. A 3-year around-the-world cruise is finally setting sail again, following a 4-month delay.
For those on the cruise, it's been tedious, week after week in Belfast, waiting for the ship to sail.
Today, we're playing miniature golf. But, we've just about frequent every restaurant that you have in Belfast and bars.
But after the long wait, relief at last. With hundreds of passengers cheering, the cruise ship finally cast off, then an unscheduled return only a few hours later to Belfast for what's being called administrative paperwork. They'll now try again. Tom Rivers, ABC News, London.
Satellite provider DirecTV is buying rival Dish and Sling from owner EchoStar. The debt exchange deal includes a $1 payment. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Small business owners, we know tackling your to-do list can sometimes feel like going 12 rounds against a heavyweight champ. Except that heavyweight's gloves are made of something hard, like diamonds. So when a new to-do pops up, you're like, I can't. I'm boxing my diamond boxing glove-wearing heavyweight champ of a to-do list. At Progressive, we don't want to make your day any harder. That's why we make it easy with over 30 customizable coverage options, so you can finally land a knockout blow. See if you can save on business insurance in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
I'm Will Feelwright with your KVNU News update as we have sunny, clear skies outside the studio windows. Been enjoying some nice weather the last couple of days. Looks like it's going to continue. I'll check your weather forecast coming up in just a minute as the news this hour is brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Well, a piece of 1930s history was almost leveled to the ground forever, but instead, it was saved last week, as KVNU's Simran Norgebauer has the story.
Thanks to Logan School District and some COVID relief funds, a piece of 1930s history has been saved from demolition. Last week, the Logan School District opened the Grizzly Outdoor Learning Center, promising to preserve its historic buildings while also providing ongoing environmental education. Science educator and environmental activist Jack Green celebrated the opening and is excited for what its future holds.
This, to me, is spine-tingling. Okay, this is fabulous.
The former Utah State University Forestry Field Station Camp was on the chopping block.
What do we do with them? We've got some beautiful buildings, but we really didn't have any long-term objective.
Tony Johnson, who owned the lease on the property, said he explored several options, but until speaking with the school district, nothing was panning out. Until discussions began in 2022 that led to a new vision for the space. Without the federal funds, Logan School District Superintendent Frank Schofield says the idea never would have come to fruition.
Really would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, for us to act on this and actually make it happen.
While the outdoor center primarily serves thousands of students in the Logan School District, future plans include access for other school districts, businesses, families, and community groups to learn and recreate on the property. Reporting for KVNU, I'm Simran Neugebauer.
Now, before being owned by USU as the Forestry Field Station Camp, it was a civilian conservation corps barracks, which was built to house and train young men during the Great Depression. Well, coming up, an Alabama man found dead in a wingsuit after base jumping in Box Elder County. That, as the news continues, is first checking that weather on the sixes. It's brought to you by Firehouse Subs as we've had sunny skies this afternoon. Temperatures been in the mid-70s. Looks like we're going to top out at about 77 for our high today, then drop into the low 40s tonight. More sunny skies tomorrow as temperatures are going to be in the low 80s. Then back into the high 70s for Thursday, 80s return for Friday and the weekend, and it looks like it's going to remain clear overnight and through the day all the way into next Monday. Well, an Alabama man reportedly died Friday after base jumping near Willard Peak. According to the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office, the man was an experienced base jumper, his friend had told deputies. Now, at approximately 2 o'clock Friday, an individual reported that his friend had failed to provide an expected update after base jumping in a wingsuit. Weber County Sheriff's Office was contacted and helicopters were requested to assist with the search. The Box Elder County Sheriff's Office said the friend had provided them with some crucial information regarding potential jump locations and flight routes, and a coordinated effort to find the man began. After about 2 hours of searching, a Department of Public Safety helicopter found the man approximately 1 mile northwest of Willard Peak in an extremely rugged terrain. The Box Elder County Sheriff's Office and the victim said that the victim was identified as Jonathan Bazilia, a 27-year-old who had died. And the woman who was killed after she and her child were ejected from a vehicle over the weekend has been identified as well. Emma Gordhammer, a 25-year-old of Holiday, was killed on impact in that crash, while her 3-year-old child was hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. Utah Highway Patrol troopers say that Gordhammer reportedly was driving around 115 miles an hour north on I-15 between Salt Lake County and Davis County when she immediately got off of about milepost 322 onto Antelope Drive, rolled her vehicle. Troopers say that one of the doors of the vehicle was missing, and both she and her 3-year-old were ejected. Now the 3-year-old remains hospitalized. In for Bill Walter, I'm Will Theoright with your KVNU News Update.
Roof Rescue is your local roofing specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
The local news source. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Clean it up and get it out before the snow flies. Don't wait another winter. Let DD Auto and Salvage pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204 today. See store for details.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your loved ones, you deserve the best. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, an Alera Group company. We believe that obtaining life insurance should be affordable and worry-free. As an independent auto owners insurance agency, we work with top-notch carriers to find the best policy for your unique needs. You can rest assured that you're getting the best coverage and the best price. Quality First Insurance, 435-752-0101.
The Aggies begin conference play Saturday as they travel to Boise State to face the Broncos.
It's going to be a fun game, sold out atmosphere already, and going against one of the best players in the country. So we know we got things we got to improve on. Starts with ourselves and just gearing up for this big game.
Pre-game begins at 4, kickoff is at 5, and post-game and Aggie call immediately follows the game. It's the Aggies and the Broncos, Saturday afternoon on News Talk KVNU, the Heritage Home for the Aggies. KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM. Online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Tuesday, October 1st. I'm Jason Williams. Coming up on the show today, we'll be joined by Greg Peterson here for our monthly For the People book club, but Mr. Peterson bringing a guest with him today for a special reason. The guest will be former Logan City Council member and one-time candidate for I'm trying to remember now. Herm Olson will be joining us to talk about. This is a book by Hampton Sides, is the author's name, and it's called Ghost Soldiers. Ghost Soldiers is available anywhere you want to buy it. It's the story of an incredibly true story of this rescue of Americans from a Japanese prison camp in the Philippines. You might know the story, but the details that are revealed in Ghost Soldiers by Hampton Sides are mind-blowing. And Herm Olson going to be joining Craig Peterson and myself for the For the People Book Club today, coming up in hour 2. Here in hour 1, we'll be getting to it early, so a special bonus for those who can't listen Tuesdays at 5 for our weekly sneak preview of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. This is an hour-long discussion Sutherland Institute hosts once a week, and our friend Nick Dunn at Sutherland agreed to let our listeners hear a little preview of that. So that's coming up bottom of this hour instead of starting hour 2 to make way for the People Book Club. Each month we do that. But normally you can hear this every Tuesday at 5 at the start of hour 2. This week, Nick Dunn sits down with a filmmaker named Thomas Lehrman. He's the executive producer of a new documentary called Free Exercise, America's Story of Religious Liberty. And this is the political story of a decades-long fight for codifying religious freedom into state statutes and also, federal policy, and the political back and forth that has happened around that since that effort began. So the documentary comes out soon, and you'll have a chance to hear from one of the filmmakers, executive producer of the documentary, Thomas Lehrman, sits down with Nick Dunn of Sutherland Institute. We'll get to that after the news at the bottom of the hour. During the news break there, you heard news and some quotes from an event held today, breaking ground on Logan School District's new Grizzly Outdoor Learning Center. This is a first in Cache Valley. I looked earlier today to see if it was a first in Utah, and I can't confirm that, but I will say I didn't find evidence of it happening anywhere else yet. But District Superintendent Frank Schofield, and regular guest here on the show, quoted in the news story there from CacheValleyDaily.com that a group of community members got excited about the idea of outdoor learning, and they started working with the school district, partnering with the school district. And at this ribbon cutting today, the now open Grizzly Outdoor Learning Center, he said, would have every great thing that happens in public education happens because of partnerships with people with good ideas like this. So they took these Great Depression era buildings on a property near, it's a road near Tony Grove, and they on September 25th, they officially broke ground and cut the ribbon. And this is working with Utah State University Forestry Field Station Camp, Logan City School District, some parents, some federal COVID relief funds, a lot of different moving pieces here. And Schofield said without the support and those funds, it would be extremely difficult to make something like this happen. But he said that these funds were made available in a federal relief package during the pandemic to revitalize schools, and this fits perfectly into that. So he said, we're looking at alternative ways to provide education experiences for students besides just having them sit in the classroom. And he also gave a shout out to Tony Johnson, Logan native, who owned the lease on this property and who helped make the preservation of the existing buildings, the Great Depression era buildings, and a rebuild of what was once a mess hall for troops. It burned down in the 1980s and has been restored fully. And Johnson said he had explored several options over the years. He didn't want to see it just developed into something else, but he didn't really know who was going to be able to make use of the existing buildings because, as Johnson said, it was kind of like a school, and only specific people are going to be interested in that type of thing. And then, well, a school was Logan City School District, in fact. Johnson said, he said we've got these beautiful buildings. We didn't have a long-term objective or plan with them. And suddenly this idea comes our way. It was a perfect match. And science and environmental educator with the Logan School District, Jack Green, also said, he called it spine tingling. He said, this is fabulous. The opportunity this opens up. Superintendent Schofield also said, we can expose them to the natural beauty that exists up here in the canyon, but it also gives us ways that we can recreate in the mountains in a healthy, safe, environmentally friendly environment for students. So the way this will work, families, it'll be open to private events, to businesses, things like that. Might want to make use of it, community groups, but you can schedule use of the facility. And then the three buildings, including the main hall, and then what is going to be an administration building. There's restrooms, showers, beds, living space, full kitchen inside there. Those won't be utilized by the schools, of course. And before it was owned by USU as the Forestry Field Station Camp, it was part of the CCC project, similar to that land Hiram City manages at the mouth of Blacksmith Fork Canyon. The Civilian Conservation Corps built they're at the mouth of Blacksmith Fork Canyon. You can still see the foundations back in the trees, but there used to be a couple of barracks, a mess hall, latrines, and all of that going back to the Great Depression. Those buildings are since gone, but the foundations you can still see. This is a similar place, but further up Logan Canyon, a road near Tony Grove. It will now be utilized as an education facility. And so the first question I think that pops into a lot of people's head when you talk about this is, how does this fit in with education? I've linked to some of this on our Facebook page, but the first to check out, if you want to read, why this is a big idea that's kind of catching on now. Well, the reason it's catching on now is the pandemic. During the pandemic, for safety reasons, to get airflow to reduce the spread of a virus. If you know even the bare minimums of how viruses spread, packing 40 people into a tiny little classroom without any kind of real airflow, one person has a virus, well, that everybody in there leaves with that virus after about an hour or two. So you don't have to be a virologist to understand that, right? So during the pandemic, when it was possible, they would move kids outside. They would set up classrooms outside. It was fun for the kids. It settled nerves. It got everybody, it focused on learning in a new space. But it was also something that as they did it, they realized made a difference in ways that weren't part of the goal. There's been a lot of research on this, but Harvard Graduate School of Education has an article called Make Outdoor Learning Your Plan A. This is written primarily for superintendents, teachers, educators, but it's an article that kind of captures all of the research that's been done on what way back in the 1900s when there was a tuberculosis pandemic, basically. It was raging unchecked. And to mitigate transmission, similar to what we did with COVID-19, they started doing these fresh air classrooms, and it worked. It slowed transmission of tuberculosis, but they also, again, a secondary thing that they learned was that the students actually seemed to perform better. They retained information better. They were more engaged and excited about learning things in the first place. And before any real research on this was done, antibiotics came along after World War II, and the outdoor classroom thing kind of became, passé until COVID-19, when the idea came back. So there's a lengthy history of outdoor classrooms, but what researchers in education have found, and that's what this Harvard article I've linked to is about, is that there are a lot of, it's a complex set of reasons that researchers believe are behind this, but there is a mountain of evidence showing that kids learn better. There is something about a fresh air classroom, about being outside, something that's not a concrete or cinder block walled classroom, or being trapped in a room with tiny windows. And they found that kids actually they feel more invited to learn in these environments. And again, the reasons for these benefits are complex. Students, but in the research, they show students are calmer, they're more focused. Teachers have reported in outdoor environments, fresh air classrooms, and again, there's about 100 years of at least anecdotal evidence on this, and about 30 years of aggressive research in an academic setting. But what they found is that teachers themselves report that children exhibit better behavior and better social interactions. There are fewer disciplinary issues. All of this just simply by, as often as possible, moving the classroom outside. And so Logan School District having an opportunity to do this is a pretty big deal. Check it out. If you want to read more about this, the problem is, of course, you can't, especially here in Utah, you can't have class outside every day, weather-wise. There are also some learning environments in which being outside is not going to be as helpful, something that involves a digital presentation. Everybody has to be able to see that screen, or a lab setting in a science class. But when it came to reading, writing, math, when it came to studies of the humanities at the high school level, social studies and things like that, they found that every student improved in their academic performance, their behavior in the classroom, and their general interest in learning if they were able to have fresh air, to get outside, to get a little sun on their face, even if that was just moving to a pavilion attached to the school right outside the regular classroom. Researchers found it has an impact. So pretty cool. Logan City School District going to be able to bus kids on a regular basis when weather allows, of course, up the canyon, and they'll be able to do what they'd be doing in a stuffy little classroom, but in a beautiful outdoor setting instead. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of jealous. We'll be back right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic has an experienced and caring team of physicians and staff to assist you with all of your ear, nose, and throat concerns, including head and neck surgery. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson and their staff at Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic will work together to provide excellent care and support throughout the entire surgery process, from your pre-op visit to your full recovery. And they accept all insurance. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT or call 435-716-1420. Local care with Intermountain expertise.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. There was a question that came in during the For the People movie show last week that I just got an answer for. I'll repeat this on the movie show Friday, but listeners today get a little sneak preview of the answer. Listener wanted to know, we're talking about movie soundtracks and music in movies, how it can drive home the emotion of a scene or the theme of the film itself. And listener asked, well after the show ended, this question came in about 8 o'clock Friday night after we'd gone home. Listener said, was listening today, I'm curious what the most used song on movie soundtracks is. What song has been in the most movies ever? And, well, you just heard some of it. Norman Greenbaum's Spirit in the Sky. 1969 kind of gospel-y rock anthem has been in the most movies, according to IMDb. This is everything Apollo 13, Remember the Titans. I don't remember what I just recently heard it used in. We'll be fine. Let's see. As far as artists go, Bob Dylan is the artist. So the song most used on movie soundtracks is that, Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum. But the artist whose songs, all of them or any of them, are most used in movies is Bob Dylan. And David Bowie's Hunky Dory as an album, more songs on that album have been used in movie soundtracks than any other album to date. So, artist, Bob Dylan, album with the most songs that have made their way onto movie soundtracks, David Bowie's Hunky Dory. That album includes songs like Life on Mars, Heroes, things like that. But and Under Pressure, his collaboration with Queen. So, album with the most songs on movie soundtracks, Hunky Dory by David Bowie. Artist, whose songs appear in movies more than any other artist, Bob Dylan. But the single song that has made its way onto more movie soundtracks than any other song in history, for some reason, Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum. So there's your little bit of trivia that you didn't know you needed to know today. I was kind of excited about this. This question came in from a listener, again, during about 2 hours after the movie show wrapped on Friday, so we couldn't answer it live, and I've been looking for the answer since, and just before the show today, I ran across it. IMDb actually tracked this, and this is every movie soundtrack on record, according to IMDb. So, Tammy, appreciate that question, and if in case Tammy isn't listening today, we'll discuss that again on Friday during the movie show. All right. On the other side, we're going to get to it a little early this week. Normally at 5 o'clock every Tuesday, you can hear a sneak preview of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. Sutherland, a conservative think tank based in Salt Lake City, with the goal of influencing public policy here in Utah by starting conversations with the public and policymakers. Every week, our listeners get to hear a sneak preview of the new episode of Defending Ideas, their weekly discussion on a wide range of topics at Sutherland Institute. This week, because of the book club coming up in hour 2, we'll get to it just a bit early. And Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute this week sits down with a man named Thomas Lehrman. He's executive producer of a new documentary coming out called Free Exercise, an American story of religious liberty. We'll get to that right after this look at the news with KVN News. We'll feel right.
Well, thanks, Jason. The news this hour is brought to you by Quality First Insurance. Back in August, U.S. Representative Blake Moore introduced bipartisan legislation to boost health care savings and improve medical treatment affordability for American families. Now, despite boasts from the Biden-Harris administration about reducing Medicare costs for millions of Americans, Moore says that one of the biggest issues that he hears about from Utah patients, providers, and employers is the skyrocketing cost of health benefits. Now, the Health Out-of-Pocket Expense Act, known as HOPE, is a step in the right direction in making health care affordable for Utahns and Americans across the country, according to Moore. That bipartisan proposal by Moore and other congressmen would create a tax-advantaged account to enable Americans with most types of health insurance to save for medical expenses through both individual and employer contributions. And a semi-truck rollover has left one person dead near Duck Creek Village in Kane County. Now, the crash happened yesterday afternoon along State Route 14, according to Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Cameron Roden. Roden said the semi went off the road and rolled onto its top. No other vehicles were involved. The driver escaped with minor injuries, but the 39-year-old male passenger died on the scene. It was not released exactly what caused the semi to roll. The semi's purpose was for hauling windows, but was empty at the time the crash occurred. And a teenage program director at the Murray Boys and Girls Club has been charged now with multiple child sex abuse charges. Patrick Robert Baker, a 25-year-old, allegedly messaged someone that he thought was a 5-year-old boy on the internet and text messaging apps. Now, police said that Baker asked the victim to perform sexual acts with him, and an arranged location was set up where Baker was arrested by police after attempting to run. As a person who works at the Boys and Girls Club, Baker, according to court documents, had access to children and is considered to be a risk to the public. Police said that Baker admitted to having child pornography also on his phone. He's been charged with multiple felonies. Well, really nice afternoon as we're going to continue to see clear skies. Overnight temperatures tonight going to drop down into the mid to low 40s overnight after we've been in the high 70s today. Now, tomorrow we'll be into the high 80s. Then 70s will return for Thursday, 80s back on Friday and into the weekend. And it looks like it's going to remain mostly clear all the way into next week with no real chance of any shower activity. I'm Will Theorite in for Bill Walter. More of KVNU's For the People show next.
ABC News, I'm Daria Aldinger. The U.S. is coordinating closely with Israel in response to what it is calling a significant attack by Iran. Pentagon spokesman Major General Pat Ryder.
U.S. Navy destroyers deployed to the Middle East region supported the defense of Israel by firing approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will respond at the appropriate time. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance meet tonight for the vice presidential debate. At least 159 deaths are now blamed on what was once Hurricane Helene. About 45,000 longshoremen at 36 ports from Maine to Texas are on strike for the first time in decades. Two former leaders of a Penn State fraternity will spend up to 4 months in prison for the 2017 hazing death of pledge Timothy Piazza. A Montana man will spend 6 months in prison for illegally using parts of sheep to breed hybrid sheep for captive trophy hunting in that state in Texas. This is ABC News.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
The local news source. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks fell from their records amid worries about the escalating situation in the Middle East. The Dow lost 173 points. The Nasdaq dropped 279. The S&P fell 54. Investors are worried that Iran's missile attack on Israel could lead to a disruption in the flow of oil. Prices, both for U.S. and Brent, rose more than 2%. Shares of gas producers and defense contractors rallied on the Mideast attacks, but the majority of stocks sank. Complicating matters for the U.S. is the dock worker strike at 36 ports across the eastern U.S., which could lead to supply chain problems and higher prices for goods. Workers are demanding higher pay and no automation of work. Economists are also weighing the data of two recent reports. One shows U.S. manufacturing weakened more than expected in September. Another finds more than 8 million job openings were posted in August, better than expected. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hey, radio listeners, before we get you back to the music, let me tell you real quick about what I did that is saving me a lot of money. I got new insulation in my house. That's right. Now, I know you're thinking, boring, but have you seen the reports lately about how better insulation can save a ton of money on your energy bills? I can tell you it made a huge difference in my home. I mean, not only does the temperature stay perfect, but my energy bill is definitely down. Do what I did. Call Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012. That's 755-5012 for Cardall's Insulation.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. We normally get to this each week at the start of Hour 2, invite listeners to weigh in on a sneak preview our listeners get of the newest episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. Sutherland is a conservative think tank based in Salt Lake City. They've been around for decades and have been a big part of our show on a regular basis over the years as well, contributing discussion ideas and topics. From the Miro moment years ago to today, this sneak preview of Defending Ideas each week. This week, a very special sneak preview of the episode of Defending Ideas, which you'll be able to watch in its entirety at sutherlandinstitute.org. Nick Dunn of Sutherland Institute this week sits down with Thomas Lehrman. He's executive producer of a new film documentary coming out called Free Exercise, America's Story of Religious Liberty. The film tells the story of the fight, political and otherwise, for religious freedom in the United States and how those efforts influenced other rights that Americans enjoy today. Here is a sneak preview of this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas.
Sort of to kind of channel, if there's anyone out there who is a little bit skeptical or saying, do we really need to be talking about religious freedom today? Aren't our rights fine and protected? And I'm thinking of someone out there who might say, well, I can go to church on Sundays. No one's kicking in my door saying I can't pray in my home. I can read my scriptural texts. If there's anyone out there who's kind of thinking, well, religious freedom is fine, it's protected, what's the big deal? Why do we need a film about it? How would you answer that question? What is the importance and the significance of this film today?
Well, the first thing I would say is, this is not a film that arises as simply a response to a threat that may exist today. We believe the history in and of itself is worth telling because of the stories that have happened in the past. And frankly, it's very difficult to predict when a new threat or a new issue related to religious liberty might arise. I mean, one of the important aspects of religious liberty in the United States and the text of the Constitution is its free exercise, which is more than simply praying in church. It's different ways in which free exercise may manifest in your work, in the schools that you participate in, through your children, or you directly. So there are lots of ways in which potential threats can arise for religious liberty, but there's no particular threat that we were focusing the film under or around. It was really much more, let's look at particular challenges that have taken place in the past so that those who are thinking about the issues today are equipped to at least intellectually deal with them, and also in some cases legally.
I think it's notable that you chose the term free exercise for the title of the film. And as you're telling the story of religious liberty in America, free exercise is kind of what you settled on. And I want to ask you, why that? Why is that the term that seems, in your mind, to best capture this issue and tell this story? And maybe expand that to mean, what does it mean? What does religious freedom actually mean? Because obviously it's more than just you can believe what you want, you can pray, you can go to your worship services. It's bigger than that. Why is it bigger, and why is that title the way to convey that significance?
Well, I mean, you have the history itself of the term is interesting. And this history I first learned actually in sort of a fun and interesting way as a result of my own law school experience. I was a classmate of a gentleman by the name of John Noonan, and John's father, also John Noonan, Judge John Noonan, wrote a wonderful book called The Luster of Our Country. And it's a story about the experiment of American religious freedom. And some of his ideas inspired my thinking and our thinking as we were producing this film and developing this film. Specifically, the term comes from the Maryland Toleration Act of 1649 originally. At the time, it was really intended to provide for religious liberty for all Christians. Remember, the Catholics were coming over from Europe. There were Protestants in the United States. So the Maryland Toleration Act ensured that there was religious free exercise for both Protestants as well as Catholics. Now, it was James Madison who really took this idea, and in the Constitutional Convention and the setting, really thought this was the right terminology to use to ensure that all faiths, in fact, had the right to free exercise. There's also this interesting question of, is free exercise the same as tolerance or toleration? That, of course, comes up in the context of George Washington's famous letter to the Jewish congregation in Newport, where he says it's not just about toleration. It's much more than that. It's about you having an equal liberty to exercise your faith in the United States. But with respect to the concrete the concrete aspects of why free exercise is so important, that in some ways really comes up in a very concrete way in the film with respect to education. Because it's not just persons going to church or worshiping in the comfort of their own home. It's the choice of either Catholics wanting to choose to send their kids to religious schools in the Pierce versus Society of Sisters case, or it also is dealt with in the Wisconsin v. Yoder case, which deals with Amish families who would like to, in fact, be able to homeschool their children. So these are some of the concrete examples of where free exercise doesn't just involve a private affair, but it involves how people are raising their families and the kinds of institutions that they can create, and frankly also connects to the concept of the right of peaceable assembly, which is also contained in the First Amendment.
Do you think that's one of the misconceptions about the very topic of religious freedom? And in conversations that I'm in, it's very frequent that I'm talking about this with someone, and they will again express that kind of like, well, you can worship, you can believe what you want, but there's almost this implicit, sometimes explicit message of worship and believe the way you want, but keep it to yourself. Like, don't bring it to the public square. Keep it in your home. Keep it in your churches or synagogues or religious institutions. But otherwise, kind of, there's this attitude of when you step out into the public square, you're supposed to check your religion at the door kind of thing. And that seems not only just wrong and limiting today, but completely antithetical to the history of religious freedom and the role of faith in society. Is that what you found in telling this story through this documentary?
Well, I think one of the more poignant moments in the documentary is when former Judge Michael McConnell, now a professor at Stanford Law School, says he's speaking about the Baptist story. And the Baptist story is really the story that, in fact, gives rise to the religious freedom guarantee in Virginia, and also, of course, inspires Madison with respect to the First Amendment of the federal Constitution. And what McConnell says is that a lot of this arose out of the Baptists, in fact, bringing their faith and their concern about religious freedom into the public square and seeking to influence the political process. And he says, were it not for the Baptists and were them not being active, we would not have a First Amendment. So the idea that religious freedom is just something you do in the private of your own home or in the quiet of a church is frankly contrary to the historical record that we see. And I think, again, Professor McConnell does a particularly good job of capturing that.
Well, the other thing, I think that the film sort of intertwines this narrative of exactly what you're saying, where various religious groups cared about something that was external to themselves. Maybe it's a group of people, or maybe it's an issue, and very often dealt with sort of a broader application of civil rights. But it was their religious faith that motivated them to get engaged. And we've talked before on this show with Bill Duncan on our team about even the abolitionists during slavery in the United States, where it was very much a religious, there were Christians and religious folks who were saying, no, that this is wrong on sort of spiritual grounds. And I think that application is very true today. There are many good people and good organizations that are motivated by their faith to get involved in some societal issue today to fix something. And it does seem that bolsters the argument that, no, free exercise of religion. Again, I love that you chose the term free exercise, because it's about exercising. It's about physically engaging in work that blesses the lives of others. And we have to create an environment in society where that's okay, and there's an appropriate role for that in the public square. Is that maybe one of the key lessons from the film?
Well, you said of the abolitionist movement and, of course, the civil rights movement, it's really impossible to comprehend those movements and the outcomes of them without the vibrant role of faith in those. Just again, looking at the abolitionist movement, obviously many people are familiar with William Lloyd Garrison of The Liberator, which is a newspaper that galvanized many of the early abolitionists. But Frederick Douglass, who of course wrote, an amazing narrative of his own experience as an enslaved person, and of course his escape to freedom. But he was inspired by his own religious convictions, and his religious convictions also led to his efforts towards the education of former slaves. So you also can see that in the Reverend John Rankin, who's mentioned in the film. And this is, of course, the scene that's captured vividly in Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, where lives of the slave is escaping across the Ohio River. So what you realize is that religious freedom, not only does it motivate these great social movements, of course you see it with, as is mentioned several times, the Reverend Martin Luther King, who was in fact a minister in the civil rights movement, but you also see it intersecting with culture, through Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. So religious freedom is animating people who want to establish organs of the press. It's animating people who want to establish schools to educate those who may not have had the opportunities in the past. And it's also animating folks in the civil rights movement.
I want to ask you about the film itself, and there's more things I want to cover on kind of the substance of religious freedom and the free exercise of religious freedom. But the film itself, I mean, it's always interesting to sort of understand, how did things like this come to be? Anytime someone writes a book or creates a documentary or creates some big project with a goal in mind, obviously at some point it was just an idea in someone's head, and then now we have the film that's rolling out. Kind of tell us that story. How did this film come to be? What was the inspiration for it? Why did you and others feel like this needed to be made today?
Well, as is the case with many projects, especially one like this is a story with many authors and many contributors. In my own life, I have benefited from some wonderful friendships and associations that have formed my thinking on this. I mentioned an intellectual relationship with a friend, and also a book that influenced me a lot, the one by Judge Noonan, but also very influenced by the work of the Beckett Fund, where I served on the board for 7 years, and the courageous leadership of Seamus Hassan, who really had the idea that what was needed in the United States was a public interest law firm that would defend the religious liberty of all faiths, not just those who were here first, not just Christians, not just Jews, not just Catholics who might have been here for over 100 years, but those of Muslims, those of Sikhs, those of Hindus, those who may have arrived in the great waves of immigration that have happened since the Immigration Act of 1965. So, a real debt of gratitude to the entire team at the Beckett Fund, and especially Seamus Hassan. Also, Rick Brookhiser, who was obviously my collaborator, among others in this. Rick is a great author of the American founding, also a great author with respect to Abraham Lincoln. We're here with the Sutherland Institute talking about a new birth of freedom, where I see it on your logo. And so Rick was a perfect partner to work with. We had worked on a previous documentary related to Chief Justice John Marshall and his role in really helping to define the role of the Supreme Court in the United States. And Rick was very interested in the history of American liberty. I was especially interested in, you could argue, it's the first freedom of American history, which is the right to free exercise, which many people forget is also captured in the preamble to the United States Constitution, where we talk about the blessings of liberty. And of course, it's captured in our founding document, which is the Declaration of Independence, that we all are endowed by our Creator with the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My father was a scholar as well of Abraham Lincoln, and certainly his ideas and interests in the founding documents influenced me, and I think in many ways encouraged me to go down this path.
Thomas, one additional question on kind of how these things come to be. I mean, obviously, it wasn't just you. You know, there's a team involved. There's a lot of work. I mean, we talk here at Sutherland often about whether it's a research paper or a podcast like this, or anything where something unique and powerful is created. There's a team behind it, and I just want to ask you about how did this come about in terms of what did it take to actually get this film off the ground? You know, who were you able to rely on to create this project in a way that's going to be impactful?
Well, I would just mention, first of all, there are just too many people to thank in this short period. But what I would say is an extraordinary team came together. We were very fortunate, very blessed to have Leo Eaton as the original producer of the film. Leo and I and Rick Brookhiser had worked on a previous production, and Leo had just indefatigable energy for this idea. He was really excited about it. He really helped to shepherd along the script, which he helped to co-author along with Rick and with me. And then tragically, in fact, just after we had a session with the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, we organized a conference, which is featured in the documentary. Leo passed on during COVID. And Leo's memory and his inspiration and his energy really live on in this film. We were very blessed also to have John Paulson step in as the producer director after Leo.
That was again Thomas Lehrman talking with Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute about a new film documentary coming soon called Free Exercise, America's Story of Religious Liberty. And I've linked to where you can get a reminder to see that. The website freeexercisemovie.com. You can watch the trailer, and you can even sign up to receive notifications about where you can purchase advance tickets for the film as it hits theaters. You can also watch a lengthy portion of the documentary itself, Free Exercise, America's Story of Religious Liberty, on the website, freeexercisemovie.com. And again, that was Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute speaking with the executive producer of the film. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Danes will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Dr. Danes for an appointment at 753-HERE and let him show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Fatigue, headaches, weight gain, hair loss, insomnia, anxiety, intestinal issues, joint pain. Do you suffer from consistent symptoms like these, and no matter how many doctors you see, things still don't improve? Whether you have a thyroid problem, an autoimmune issue, or chronic symptoms, we can help. We do complex medical testing and blood work to find the mechanisms driving your symptoms. And then we create a plan to improve each one while we teach you the tools to stay on top of your health. We've been helping patients just like you for almost 14 years now. We see patients from all over the world, and we have an office here in St. George, Logan, Salt Lake, Farmington, and Springville. You aren't crazy, you aren't lazy. It's not just because you're getting older, and these symptoms are not normal. No matter what symptoms you have, you shouldn't feel this way, and we can help. Don't accept Band-Aid answers.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I will be right by your side.
Women can have it all, including heart attacks. But symptoms like jaw pain, nausea, unusual fatigue, dizziness, and backache are often different and more subtle than for a man. The fact is, heart disease is the #1 killer of women. Know the signs. Learn more at getheartchecked.org. From Women's Heart Alliance, in partnership with Women Heart.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello, it's John.
John Cox, this is Will Feelright from KVNU, calling to give you a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs.
That's amazing. I just started getting all these text messages this morning.
Someone had contacted us, and this is what they wrote about you. They said you're a great leader, a public servant, and you're an even better person, and you're deserving in every way. So,
Dude, thanks so much. That means a lot. Appreciate it.
The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Wrapping up Hour 1, and a reminder in Hour 2, the For the People Book Club with Craig Peterson. And this week, he's bringing a guest, special guest, Herm Olson will be joining us as well. A name you have probably heard before here in Cache Valley, especially if you live in Logan City. But they are going to be talking about, with me, just here to keep time and enjoy the conversation, a book called Ghost Soldiers by Hampton Sides. This is an incredible true story of a rescue of Americans from a Japanese prison camp in the Philippines. And it reads like an action-adventure story. It is a true story. We'll be talking about it and how this history has ties to folks here in Cache Valley. That's coming up in Hour 2 in the For the People Book Club. Leaving everyone here in Hour 1 with a little piece of trivia to keep an eye on. But you've all heard of the supermoon. When that happens, atmospheric events will lead to this supermoon-style moon in the sky. Well, Earth's moon is about to have a little buddy. For the next 2 months in the sky, you'll be able to see what scientists call a mini-moon. It's actually an asteroid about the size of a school bus, roughly 33 feet. And as it whizzes by Earth, starting on this coming Sunday, it'll be temporarily trapped by the planet's gravity and orbit of the globe, and it will orbit the globe for about roughly 55 to 60 days. It has a name, this space rock. It's 2024 PT5, but you can call it just Mini Moon. And it was first spotted in August by astronomers at University of Madrid using a powerful telescope that's located in South Africa. And these short-lived mini-moons are likely more common than we realize. And this is just one of those rare times when we got a little advance notice one was coming. So keep an eye on it. If you want to see it in the sky, it won't be visible to the naked eye, but even a cheap amateur telescope should allow you to see it just off to the right side and a bit lower than our usual moon. So something to watch for in the night skies over the next couple of months, the mini moon. All right, that's it for Hour 1 of today's show. Coming up in Hour 2, the For the People Book Club with Craig Peterson and this week's special guest Herm Olson joining us as well to talk about Ghost Soldiers. This is an incredible true story of the rescue of Americans from a Japanese internment camp at post-World War II